Okay, gang, welcome to, I think, part 5 of this studio rebuild. It's a lot longer than I thought it was going to take, but that's cool. Hey, let me show you where we are. So it's early Sunday morning here. Let me show you what's on the docket for today. And if you don't believe me that I get up super early when I say Dave is up at the crack of dawn every day, it is 6:18 a.m. and I've been up since 4:30. So anyhow, what are we going to do today? Today we are finally going to start wiring the console, but let me show you where we're at. So first thing I got to do is got a couple little repairs on this Switchcraft patch bay. I noticed that on this one, when I was taking off the D-subs, some of the posts came out of the back, which got attached to the D-sub, which is fine. I have the post, but the little nut fell off, the little screw and the little nut on the back fell off. And I had to locate that, so I found that here. I got to repair that today. And actually, that happened on not only this patch bay, but I lost 3 of them on this patch bay. And I can't find the little nuts that hold this in the back. I don't know how that happened. They must have fell out of the casing somehow. So I reached out to Switchcraft, and they're actually they sent me a free bag of replacement parts so I could replace these with the little nuts and tighten them all up. So thank you to Switchcraft. I think those will be here tomorrow according to the FedEx tracking number, so I gotta fix that. So that's getting done today. Then as soon as I fix this, we're gonna start wiring the console. So let me show you what I did. So the way to try to figure out whether or not, remember I've been saying that with all the different lengths, where they came off the console, the same length of cable is not going back on. A lot of these things have to be flip-flopped because we move the racks from the right side of the console to the left side of the console, and they're sitting a little further back. So I figured the easiest way to do this was to make myself like a map. So if you remember, every single cable, if you watch back the first few videos, every single cable had a label on each side of the D-sub, where it was connected to on the console, and then on the other end, where its destination was over here, whether it was one of the quantums or whether it was the patch bay or what have you. So what I did was I took one cable at a time and I just looked at both sides of the cable, where they were labeled, and I wrote myself a little map. So let me see if I can show you this. Let me put this over here. It's a little sloppy, but I'm gonna type this up and keep this for future. So I went to the back of the console and I looked at the 4 buckets. Here's 25 to 32. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see the focus on this. And I wrote down the 5 connectors in each bucket. Direct out, long fader return, long fader insert send, monitor line in, channel line in. For the 4 buckets, 25 to 32, 17 to 24, 9 to 16. And then on the next page, buckets 1 through 8. And these are the connectors that are on the SSL. So I looked at like the first one, direct out. That cable goes from the direct out the console goes to one of the quantums on the input 25 to 32. So once I wrote down the connectors, then I found the cable that had this label on it, and then looked at the other side of that cable and where was its destination, and I wrote it down. And I did that for all 4 buckets. Then I did the entire master section of the console. Wrote down all the connectors on the console, got the labels, figured out which ones got plugged into those sections, then wrote down on the other side of the cable, where does it go? Does that make sense? So this way now, I have a road map, and I'm gonna type this up and keep it in a binder. So I know where every single connector in this system, from the SSL, where it goes in the racks. Okay? Then I had where the NG levels get hooked up. So this way I have like kind of a roadmap on how everything gets hooked up. So as things change in the future or whatever, you're not always trying to remember where do all 40 D-subs get hooked up to. Now I'll have ourselves a little map. Once I had the map written, then I went through and I physically took off every single label off these cables. Because now I don't need the labels on the cables anymore. Every single label came off because now it doesn't matter, and then I stacked them by sizes, the different sizes, and now I can just grab the appropriate length on the console, label it with my roadmap, and then just reconnect all the cables. This way, the size of the cable and the way they were labeled prior doesn't matter, because I got myself a written document on where everything goes on both sides, and all I have to do is just relabel the cables and take one cable at a time and start wiring it to the console, running it over to the gear. So that's what I'm going to do this morning. At least try to get the SSL hooked up, at least get the SSL portion of it done, so I can see again, is all the cables going to be long enough? I'm hoping so. I'm going to start on the far side from buckets 25 to 32 with my longest 25s and 20 footers and start running them and just start piecing it. And if I have to order anything, I'll write down which ones come up short, and I'm going to get online and place an order. So that's where we are. This morning, I'm still waiting for my HDMI cables to come in, so that mess on the floor is still there, as I've been saying for the last 5 videos. That's probably one of the last things I'm going to get done. Oh, and the last thing I'll show you before we break here is, yes, last night I did do some more wiring here. So all the speakers for the trim off, all those wires are now run. The power for the SSL is now over here. I'm running all the speaker wires for the trim off down the side of the rack here. I'll come over here and show you. So basically what I did was, and this is kind of temporary, but it's a way to keep them organized, is I just took a cable tie and made like a little loop down the side of the rack, and I have a trunk of cables coming down the side of the rack, which are all the speaker cables from the trim off, Cat 5 wires, HDMI cables, all of that, and that runs all along the floor here, which is going to get all bundled up. You can see we got the speaker cables there that I have to extend waiting for the trim off. Then they go behind this lamp and they run along the baseboard along the floor to the other side. So again, that's all going to get tidied up and cleaned up once everything is finalized. But I did all of that. I had to make sure we got all the wires run down the side of the server rack here. So that's what I did last night. So that's where we're at. So hopefully the next part of this video you'll see, I can start showing you some of the D-subs being hooked up to the SSL. And I'll let you know how many cables I got to buy. Okay, see you guys soon. Okay, gang, next update. We're at the end of another day. So we made a ton of progress today. Let me show you, I'm excited. So let's see. First thing I'm doing here is repairing the patch bay that I told you about. Switchcraft was so cool. Sent me a bunch of free screws and nuts that were missing out of the back of the patch bay. So I got a bunch of these little lugs and stuff all replaced. So that's going to be put back together and get back into the rack. But the main event, as you can see, most of the D-subs are now gone. They are hooked up to the console. We are down to the last 11 cables. All 4 buckets have been hooked up. I'm just got to do the master section. Here is the cabling that's coming down here. Let me see if I can get behind the console here. Sorry the lighting is not great. I don't have a spare light back here, but here we are. This may be terribly dark, sorry. But you've seen this before in other videos. I'll try to lighten this up a little in post. But basically we got all 4 buckets, all done, all labeled. Everything is good. It's running down the side of the console, down the side here. I have to still do a couple of tie wraps behind the console here, and then let me take you back behind there. And the good news was, the first thing I thought, well, here you'll see, that's everything. I mean, it is so much neater than it used to be. I was originally thinking, let me come back out here for a second, then I'll kind of show you the back of the patch base. Remember, I was kind of saying I was nervous that I was going to have to replace a bunch of cables, that they may not be long enough from the far side of the console. Not the case at all. As a matter of fact, a lot of these cables are slightly too long, which is great. But they're not long enough to do what I originally wanted to do. So what I originally wanted to do to try to avoid some of this was to come out the console, kind of come back and around. That wasn't going to happen. That if I was going to do that, 80% of these cables would have had to been, they would have all had to been 25 footers in order to do that, and that just wasn't feasible. The other problem with that whole idea, although it would look nicer, is that you can see here on the floor see the 4 orange pieces of gaffer's tape? That is where the speaker stand goes. So I would have to run the big trunk of cables behind the monitor stand. Number one, I don't have the cables that are long enough. Number two, I thought I didn't want to do that after I thought about that. Once the monitors are placed and I have these trios up here, if I ever had to pull a cable or do something, I don't want to have to move a monitor stand. That's a real pain in the ass. So I did the next best thing. I just said, you know what? I don't have to buy anything. The cables are all long enough. Once I got, you know, the 20 footers on this end and worked my way down, we're coming across here. We're going to neaten them up. Now, again, there's no way to get around this. You just can't hide all the cables. But this is way better than it was before. Even though that's not a walkway. No one goes over that way. If you remember where the rack used to be and where this bundle on the floor used to be, it used to be over here. Remember, the server rack was in this corner, the gear was over here, and there was a big bundle that was going down across. So anytime you wanted to go behind the rack, you're stepping over the bundle. Anytime you wanted to go to the server rack, you're stepping on the bundle. Here, that's not the case at all, because this is not a walkway. The access point to the racks into the gear is way over here. So, and I also have some other ideas to how to cover that, maybe decoratively to make it look okay, but I'm not really worried about it. It's just, you know, hey, you want to have 40 D-sub cables? They're going to go somewhere. These still have to get all cleaned up. I'm not done with this yet. This is going to run behind the baseboard like we talked about. But anyway, what I found was, because some of these cables were a little long, it just made things, let me get back here and sit down. It just made things so much easier to run things. So I did some, you know, cable management. All of the quantums, all the NG levels, pretty much are all hooked up. You can probably see inside there, everything is labeled. I know it looks a little messy. I have to still tie wrap some stuff. I'm not done yet. But if you can remember, well, you wouldn't know because you weren't here, but if you could have saw behind the server rack where it was before, these things are just all coiled. I mean, you saw it when I disassembled everything. Remember that big rat's nest of spaghetti? This is a lot more neatly managed. And again, it'll all be wrapped and tied and a little bit nicer, kind of like this. So it's going to look better than this. But this is the worst of it, which again, I have about 3.5 feet from where I'm standing from this cable bundle. The floor is way more clean. Way more clean. So all these cables were definitely long enough. Some of the cables are actually going to be a little too long, like when we go from the patch base to the NG levels. Before we had like 10 footers because the racks weren't next to each other. Now we only need like a 3-foot cable. So we have some that are a little too long, but better too long than too short. So anyway, that's where I am so far. It'll get cleaned up a little bit more. But again, even after we're all said and done, we're gonna have a lot of empty floor space back here. Then the next step after that is to start hooking all the breakout cables for all the gear, which again, is gonna make it a little more messy, no question, but we're there. So the last step for me now is to get the master section hooked up. I've been using my little road map that I showed you in the last section. So I know where everything goes from one end of the cable to the other end. It's worked out really good. Obviously, I haven't turned on anything and tested it yet, so hopefully it's hooked up correctly, but that's all that's left. That's all that's left. And that'll probably get done either tonight or tomorrow, and I'll come back and show you some more video. The other thing that really I was a little surprised pleasantly is when you come behind the console now, there's like almost no wires back here. I mean, there's nothing going back here, where again, before, because Dave and I did everything in different stages, and as we added gear, we just kind of threw wires behind the console and stuff. There was just a mess of stuff. You couldn't find anything. We had UPSs on the floor, on the other side of the subwoofer. There were power cables everywhere. Now look how clean this is. And I'm not even done cable managing anything. And I mean, there's nothing else to go back behind here with the exception of 2 speaker stands for the trios, which will be here tomorrow. Tomorrow. And I'll show you some video. I'll do some video when we get that. So again, there's really no wires back here, nothing on the floor. And that's pretty much how it's going to stay, with the exception of, again, we'll run along the baseboard. We're going to run power for the focals. The speaker cables for the focals got to go to the trim off, as we talked about in the last section. That's, again, going to run all along the baseboard. I'm going to tie wrap it, so everything back here will be nice and clean. So this is where the console, this is its final position. I put it back in the position that it's going to be in just so I can get a feel for how everything is. And I gotta tell you, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. In the first couple of parts of this series, I was a little nervous, as I said, but now that it's all coming together, I love it. The only thing that I want to try to, from an eyesore point of view, although you would never see this on camera when I'm doing videos, unless I'm showing it to you behind the scenes, as I want to somehow, you're never going to be able to hide it, but I don't know. I thought maybe building, I don't know. I had a couple stupid ideas. Hey, if you have any ideas on how I can kind of hide that, I was thinking about having like a little wood box built that's just removable, that kind of lays over the top of it. Maybe stain it and put something, display some stuff on it or something. I don't know. Just, maybe, you know what I mean? Like a box with a stand, and maybe put a couple of guitar stands and put some guitars up here or something. I don't know. Maybe in the comments below, you have any ideas. Again, it's a studio. There's going to be lots of cables, but if I can somehow take that from an eyesore, dress it up, somehow cover it, put something on top, I don't know. Let me know in the comments below what you think. But aside from that, and that doesn't even really bother me, because in my videos, that we do for YouTube and stuff, you'll never, ever, ever see that. So it doesn't matter. But anyway, that's where we are. What are we spinning today? We're spinning something a little different than yesterday. We're spinning the Kiss 1978 solo albums today. I was listening to Paul Stanley's album, and then I'm going to break out Peter Criss's album. I haven't listened to that in a long time. So we got some purple vinyl here for Mr. Stanley. Pretty cool. That's what we're spinning today. And that's it, man. So that's the update here. I will, maybe as soon as I'm done with the master section, I'll let you guys see the final product as far as that goes. I did get my HDMI cables that I was talking about. All my, I got some Velcro ties and twist ties. I got my my ultra long HDMI cables that we were talking about now, so I can finish that part of the project. So that'll be done. I really wish, like I was saying, man, when this whole thing is done, we're gonna have so much room back here. I would love, if I can't put that video table back there because it's too big and bulky, if I can somehow scale this down and put something a little more efficient, I gotta think about that. I would love to get all of this back here. It doesn't need to be on film. It's just, if I could just get something that I got plenty of room. I got tons of room back here. If I could even put a table that's this big, like elevated, something like that, where I could put all that video capture stuff, I think that would be really good. And that would, it still would not be in the way here. And it'll clear up that whole thing. It frees up the room even more. So I got to think about what I'm going to do with that. But I think when this is all said and done, I somehow can get that equipment behind those racks. Maybe not on this table, maybe not on this desk. Maybe it's got to be something that's only half the width, but it has different levels. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. Do some Amazon searches. Leave me some links. So that's it for now, guys. Again, leave comments below, and I will see you in the next section where I'll show you when all the D-subs are finally gone. I'll bring you back and show you. Okay, gang. Next update. It's a new day here. It is now Monday morning at around 8:30 a.m. And so where did we pick up last time? We picked up last time that we were just about... Oh, we had all of the D-subs for all 4 buckets on the SSL done. We were just going to hook up the master section. Well, now that has been done. The entire SSL is hooked up. I powered everything on this morning to make sure everything is turned on. Everything is turned on. Everything is working, which is really cool. I got the console on. That works. The UF8 works. I finished running all the power cables for the UF8, the USB cables, power cables for the console. All that stuff has been run now. All of the D-subs, with the exception of one cable, I'm missing for the SSL. We were 1 cable short. I had to order a 15-footer. It'll be here tomorrow because we had some 10-footers. I think we must have used a 10-footer at one point or another when the racks were over there, and it was long enough, but no 10-footer is long enough to go from here to here. So I'm 1 cable short. So 1 cable's coming in. That's no big deal. All the other cables on the console are hooked up. Everything is hooked up. Everything is running along the floor here, as I showed you in the last section. I haven't cable tied or cable wrapped anything yet. I want to test everything before we do that. So yeah, so that's what we're going to do. So let me show you what it kind of looks like on the back here. So there's one cable on the floor here. That cable's got to be hooked up to the patch bay when I get that new cable tomorrow. The patch bays are now hooked up. Everything's got fresh labels. Everything's been labeled. And that's all the cabling coming from the console. So again, not bad. Pretty neatly wire managed, but not too bad. And we got one more cable to hook up, as I said. That is going to be hooked up to the patch bays tomorrow with the second cable that I have coming in. And the console is completely hooked up to the patch bay. I ran all the HDMI cables we talked about for all the different cameras and the screens. Those are all run now. Let's see, what else? Ethernet, computer stuff. Everything has been hooked up. The last thing to do is now to hook up all of the breakout cables to all the gear. That's today's goal. Hopefully I'll get to that today. So we have one bin of cables here. That's gonna be hooked up today. Oh, and there's 4 of these 10-footers have to go from the patch bay to the NG level. I have to do that this morning as well. So that's the last of the cables, guys, and then it's done. We're done. I'm going to pick up the trios hopefully today. I got one speaker stand put back in place here. I got to move that and do some tie wrapping, but I just wanted to see how everything was going to sit. But I want to get everything tie wrapped at least behind here, behind the speaker stand. So once the speakers are mounted, I don't want to have to move them. The other one's in the back room. If you come around this side, and again, the thing that I keep saying that we're going to get done every single day still hasn't been done yet. That's going to be the last thing I do. That's all the video stuff. What are we spinning today before I forget? We are spinning an original LP from 1970s, the Rolling Stones, Get Your Ya-Ya's Out Live. This is an original. This took me forever to find in almost perfect condition. Got the original inner sleeve here. If you're a Stones fan, the original purple label. There we go. That's what we're spinning today. But yeah, this will get all cleaned up probably tomorrow. And then let's see, back here behind the console again, once I get the other speaker stand in here for the trio, this is all the cabling that's behind the console. This is really it. Nothing compared to what it was before. What's sitting on top of the Focal sub is the breakout cables for the different speakers from the SSL. Those are just going to kind of be coiled up and tucked underneath. That's really it. And then this is all the stuff that's going to run to the video capture stuff, which is again all right here. So all that's going to be done in the next day or so, hopefully. Got all the HDMI cables run, everything's good. So that's where we are. So today, goal, get the trios, get those set up. They take about 20-30 hours of break-in before I want to shoot the room and with the trin off. So just to be able to play some sounds. And once I get the trios hooked up, I'll be able to test and just make sure things are working. Make sure that as I'm patching gear, everything is working. Once I get all the breakout cables hooked up, I'll do a bunch of that stuff. And then once I get that done, then I'll probably start working on this mess. That won't happen today though. And then that's it, and the project's just about done. So that's where we are right now. Once I get all the breakout cables hooked up, I'll show you what it looks like behind the racks for the final kind of reveal after all the cabling's hooked up. And that's it, guys. So far so good. Again, it's Monday. I'm hoping by Wednesday this is just a done deal and everything is back up and running. And we're just back to making videos and back to working and just moving on. So I love the way it's going to look. It's going to be really cool once I finish cleaning everything up. So I will see you guys in the next section. Okay, guys, next update. We are done. Meaning we are done hooking up all the gear. All the D-subs are gone. So let me show you with all the breakout cables where we're at. So again, it's not every, you know, here comes the rat's nest, right? I mean, it doesn't look like it did before. The neat, clean, and tidy is over. I have to do some tie wraps and some better cable management, but I wanted to get everything hooked up and hopefully get it tested tomorrow. But here we are. I know, you go, oh my God, look at all these cables. But this is what it is when you hook up analog. But again, as I said before, compared to what it was before, this is way, way better. It's way more organized. I know it doesn't look it. Let me get it from the side view when you first walk in behind the racks. And you can see we have all that free space behind these racks. This is really this is better than it was before. Now I want to show you one little problem on some of these breakout cables that I knew before, but recently have rediscovered and really frustrated. So on Jumper Z's and on Mogamis, you have these nice thick, I don't know if you're going to be able to, how well you're going to be able to see this nice thick post, and you have a screwdriver slot to get a straight blade screwdriver in there. They tighten down to the patch bay. If you can't get your hands in where it gets really tight, you throw a screwdriver on there, they're perfect. Conversely, on a lot of these Procos, which I'm going to show you one here. I don't know if you're going to be able to see. I don't know if I'm going to be able to focus it. Damn it. And I'm not taking any of them out because let me tell you, they were a pain to get in. But a lot of the Procos, here's one down here. There's like 10 of them. They have these very thin posts. I don't know if you're going to be able to focus in. See on the front of my finger? Very thin posts. And they don't tighten. There's no screwdriver slot on the end. So if you can't get your hands in there to tighten it down to the patch bay, and the threads on these things barely catch the screws if you're lucky. A lot of these things are just held in there by tension, just by pure tension with the wire manager rack, and they're force pressed in, but they don't tighten down. They're the worst design I've ever seen. And unfortunately, right down there, I have like 10 of them in here, and a lot of these things were almost impossible to tighten down, or I'm throwing Velcro ties on there to kind of hold the tension in. I'm gonna have to systematically replace those one at a time. They do work, but I can't stand them. If you bump any of these wires any which way, they pop loose. So this is one of the reasons why using high quality cables sometimes is a better option, because you don't have those kinds of problems with Jumper Z or Mogami. Any of the Jumper Z's and the Mogamis are perfect. Any of those Procos are terrible. And if you ever put both of them in your hand, you would know why. But anyway, and the problem is those breakout cables, they go from, D sub to XLR. They're anywhere from $160 to $250 a piece for a 5-foot cable. I got like 10 of them in this rig. So I'm not going to be able to replace them all at once. It's just too expensive. Hopefully it just works, it'll be fine. But I'm thinking what I'm going to do is every month or two, I'm just going to buy a pair of them as I get some extra money maybe, and just systematically replace them, because I can tell you some of these are held on, by a thread, because everything is so crowded with so many D-subs, you can't get your hands in there and you can't get a screwdriver on it. I tried needle nose pliers, I tried everything. Those are terrible, terrible connectors. What a terrible, terrible design these things are, these Procos. Anyway, but it's done. So we're done. The only last thing there is to do is to tidy up, cable tie, cable manage. I got to deal with this now tomorrow. I just got to deal with this video thing before I put everything back. And then look what came in today. Yes, sir. The Focal Trio 6s. These are the new ST versions. Some people asked me, or when I was looking at these, some people said to me, these things are just massive compared to the twins. They're not. The cabinet size is identical to the twins. I think people are thinking about the Trio 11s. Those are much bigger of a physical cabinet. But these things are awesome. I can't wait to get these things hooked up. I can't believe I didn't just jump and try to hook them up. But I don't want to put the stands behind the console until all the wiring is completely done. But here they are. Sorry that's a little dark in here. But here they are. I'm really, really super excited to get those fired up. And again, you can turn this way. So I'm going to put them on its side, and you can loosen the screws, and you can turn this little the mid-range and the tweeter. So these can be mounted vertically or horizontally. I will do it horizontally like I did before. So those are the Trio 6s. Awesome. And so yeah, so that's the update. Again, it's still a little messy in here. I think this will probably be the end of this video. I don't know, I'll have to see. I may just do one more section here when I get this all cleaned up. That's tomorrow's project, but that's the last thing. And then, as I said, I had one more 20 or 15-foot D-sub coming in for the console because I was one cable short, because somewhere along the line we used a 10-foot cable and 10 feet's just not long enough. And then I'm gonna bundle up, cable tie, cable manage, get everything all together. Then I'm gonna get the monitors in, and we're gonna start breaking those in before we actually use the trim off and room correct. I want to break the speakers in a little. And today, if you want to know, we are spinning the Rolling Stones live from the vault, the Sticky Fingers tour from 2015 on vinyl. Awesome. If you ever get a chance to get this, you can get these. Well, I think I got this on the Stones website. But awesome gate, not gonna be able to open it here, sorry. Anyway, awesome gatefold. Comes with a DVD of the show as well, like the Eric Clapton stuff. So again, you have a DVD of it. Really cool. 4-album set. So there you go. Sticky Fingers Tour 2015. That's the opening night in Florida. So that's where we are. The studio's still a mess. I got to start cleaning up, but we are on the final. We are on the final road now. All the hard stuff is done. It's just a matter of dealing with that video cable stuff tomorrow on the floor. Then we button up the studio, we put it back together. So anyway, if you have any questions or any comments, leave them below, and I'll see you guys in the next section. Okay, gang, I think this is going to be the final update for this video series. I think this is part 5 this video. So we're pretty much done. There's some loose ends I need to take care of, but for the most part, we are all done. All the gear works. I did a lot of testing this morning, patching in every piece of gear into the console, making sure everything works, all the patch bays are working, all the gear is working, everything works the way it's supposed to. You know, just like a big erector set. Like I said in part 1, I labeled everything properly, and it should have been all plug and play, and it was. Not one issue, knock on wood. Everything seemed to work the first time. I finally got the trios in their place. Now, these are not the final kind of, you know, dialed in position. I'm just breaking them in. So I threw them up on my stands, on my little acoustic, whatever the ISO acoustic stands, and I'm just running, you know, Apple Music through them for about 10-15 hours to break them in a little bit before I do the final positioning and then room correct with the trim off. The console is back where it's gonna go. It's in its home position. I just have one more D-sub cable that just came in today from Sweetwater. This is the last 20-footer that I need on the front of the console there to hook up the rest of the rest of the stereo groups. That was the only cable that was too short, so I only had to buy one cable. Everything else is done. Not this mess that we've been talking about since the beginning. That's last. That's all the video stuff. I gotta maybe take a break and, you know, maybe tomorrow or the next day just get down here and do that. And I got to do some little more cable ties and stuff behind the console. Before I buttoned everything up for good, I wanted to make sure everything was working, and it is. Bundle up this trunk coming from the console. But again, back here now, I know the lighting's not going to be great, but just to kind of show you what it looks like back here. Again, I got to clean it up and just tidy it up a little bit, but I will tell you, if you remember the first video, there is not even a fraction of the cables behind that console than there was before. Not even a fraction. So it is really nice, and it's easy to just find things. If I have to crawl behind here for something, it's actually doable now. And I still got some more cable tie work to do. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm pretty happy. Well, by the way, trios, if you get a chance to go listen to these things are absolutely stunning. Now, these are the brand new ST6s. I am running them with my Focal sub, even though these things have an amazing amount of low end on their own. It's almost, I turned off the sub and was listening to it without it. I mean, they got a lot of low end in them. But the sub definitely helps. I like the reinforcement of the sub as well. But what an upgrade from the twins. It's still got that Focal sound, but the detail in the high end in this thing, it's just, they're unbelievable. If you haven't had a chance to listen to them, listen to them. They sound, they sound unbelievable. The best pair of speakers I've ever owned, by far. I mean, they're not cheap. I mean, they're almost $7,000. But you know what? I mean, what an upgrade. I mean, what an upgrade. Not that my twins weren't good, because I mixed lots of records on them. Clients were very happy. Before that, I used to mix on the solos. So I've been in the Focal family for many years, and you can mix on any of them. But this thing is an entirely new dimension. So those things are great, and I can't wait to get them broken in, and then I'm going to do the trim off, and I'm going to, do the room correction. I might do a video on that and show you how it's done. It's really quite simple. And do that, because we're going to room correct, because I just spoke to Trinoff today, and I'm getting a Nova hopefully before Thanksgiving. So we're going to shoot out the Nova between my ST2 Pro and the Nova, and it's not really a shootout because from a sound perspective, they tell me it is 100% identical. It's just a much more up-to-date, user-friendly application, the software app, and it's a lot smaller than this, and it fits in a 1U rack, not this big clunky computer. So that's going to be really cool. So we're going to do a bunch of videos on that as well. So I'm anxious to get my trios corrected here. Now the other thing too is I originally, these here, supposedly you can take these screws out and you can rotate this, so you can put these on their side if you want. And that's how I was going to do it. But I got to tell you, when I sit here at the console at the sweet spot and I'm looking up at the tweeters are just above my ears. I mean, if I lowered my stands just a tiny bit, I don't need to flip these on its side. And honestly, I kind of dig them the way they look. When they're on their side, they're fine. But I kind of like that. I don't know. We're going to see. But for now, I'm just breaking them in. So anyhow. So today is a bunch of cleanup. Here's the behind the racks again. I've been turning the light back here. Sorry. Here is the final cable management. I got to do a few more things with some wire ties, but here it is. And again, for folks that are new to analog gear and all this cable, you're probably looking at this going, are you freaking kidding me, dude? I'm working in the box of plugins, man. I hear you. And trust me, when you have as much gear as I have, it just takes a lot of cables. But this is by far the most organized, even though it doesn't look it, but it really is, and neatly managed that I've ever had in the three years that I've had this analog setup. And you guys seen us, me and David SJ, rip it, put it in, rip it down, put it in, rip it down, put it in. This is probably the fourth time, but this is so far the best we've done. And again, it's because of the full axis behind everything. And again, if you look how much room we have back here behind these racks, I mean, again, it's easy. It's easy, 3.5 to 4 feet. It's wide open. It's easy to get to. Again, I might even be able to put some other stuff back here. Who knows? But I mean, it's just nice. And when you're out here in the room, the racks are a little further away from me than they were before from the center of the console. Not much, maybe a couple of feet, which is fine. It's not a big deal. But yeah, I just like it. And the only part about this that I don't like, and again, there's no way around it, as I said, is, you're always going to see some cables. I'm going to dress it up a little bit, but again, it's not in a major walkway. Nobody goes into that corner. In order to get to my equipment, I don't need to climb over that. And that's what we did have, if you remember, when everything was over here. So if you don't remember that, go back and watch the first video. I show you it. And so, yeah, it is a little bit of an eyesore, but I'm going to make do. And the only way I could have went straight out the back of the console and around the outer perimeter of the wall is, I would say 20 of these cables would have had to been replaced with 25 footers from 15 footers. And at $250 a cable, there was just no way I was going to do that. Again, I don't have clients that come here. I'm the only one that works here, except when David SJ comes down, my buddy, and your buddy. Nobody else sees this. You never see it on camera unless I'm showing it to you behind the scenes. So does it bug me a little? Yeah, it bugs me a little. Is it better than it was before? 100%. Am I going to go out and spend $3,000 to replace all those cables just to make them go around the room a little neater? No way in hell. I just can't. I just can't. So you know what? It is a lot better, but ultimately, when I'm just standing here looking, and again, I got to clean this up. I got some new decor coming, some new lamps and stuff to dress it up and make it look a little bit more uniform. That lamp's being replaced. That lamp is being replaced. We're gonna do some things to dress up the front. But when you just sit there and look, it's nice and symmetrical. It's not cluttered. You don't have a big ugly rack in the corner anymore and cables all over the place. And once I clean up all that stuff, all this stuff will be wide open. It just looks and feels more open to me. And if you were in the room, you would understand that. So I'm really happy with it. So this has been, let's say, 7 days of working on this. Again, not every day, all day, as you guys have seen in the other videos, but I would say on average, about 3 to 4 hours a day is what I worked on this. So about 28 to 30 hours to do all of this, to tear it all down, organize it all, strategize, come up with a plan and put it all back together in an organized way. Took about 28, 30 hours. That's what it took with one person who's done this a few times and knows how it all goes together. But I wanted to make sure that I really mapped it out well. So when I plugged it all back in, it just worked. And guess what? When I plugged it all back in, everything just worked. Every piece of gear worked. There was no, oh, I plugged the wrong cable into the wrong place, because you can do that with all these cables if you don't have everything well mapped out. But I think I showed you a few sections ago where I wrote out a map from one end of the cable to the other, a nice blueprint on how this whole studio goes together. And so I'm kind of happy that I did this, and I'm happy. Well, I'm happy and I'm not happy in that, you know, since we've set this up from the beginning, my buddy and my partner and my friend, David S.J., and your friend, has helped me do this. He's been here every step of the way, and I can't thank him enough. I love him. He's a great guy. And this time he was going to come up and help as well. I was going to prep it, and he was going to come up over a weekend. But honestly, this was such a big job that I really felt I just wanted to take my time and do it myself. Because when you do it all yourself, you learn every little nook and cranny about where every single cable goes, how everything is interconnected. When I was working with Dave, we would split up the jobs. He would do part of a job, I would do part of a job. I really wasn't sure what he was doing and how he was doing it, and he really wasn't sure what I was doing and how I was doing it. So neither one of us, I think, really knew the whole system from A to Z. I know I didn't. Maybe Dave did. I can't speak for him, but I know for me, I didn't. There were things that Dave knew that I just didn't know because he worked on it and I didn't. We talked about it, but I didn't put my hands on it. And I'm a hands-on kind of a guy. So for me, doing this all by myself, it was not great not having my friend around, but it was really great because I could take my time. I didn't have to worry about him coming up, and you know, I know he has to drive an hour and a half away, and trying to get as much done as we can while he's here, because then you get a little sloppy. You don't always get things the way you maybe wanted to because you're just trying to get it done. This way, I was under no pressure to get this done. This could have took 2 more weeks. It would have been fine. I was able to go through, organize everything, label every single cable, every single D-sub, every single XR cable, every single power cable, speaker cable. Everything in this studio is labeled. I'm able to take the time to do that and draw out a map so I know exactly where everything goes back together. And then when you plug it all back in, it just works. So I'm kind of glad I did this particular one myself. And as I stand here and record this, our good buddy David S.J. doesn't even know it's done. He thinks he's coming up on, I don't know what date we're on. I think he thinks he's coming up like right before Thanksgiving to help me do this. He doesn't know that this is done. He'll know by the time he sees this video, but it's kind of a surprise. I'm going to kind of surprise him. It's, hey, look what I did, man. You don't have to come here and break your butt. You could just come up here and work on the console, which I know he wants to do. He wants to come up and he wants to mix, and he should. With all the work he's put in, he should come up and mix on this a few times, and I can help him learn it because he hasn't done it in a while. And that'll be fun, and we'll do some videos there too, and you can watch somebody really brand new work on the console. You've seen me work on it, but now I have almost 3 years of experience with it. He really has none except for setting it up. He hasn't really worked on it. So that'll be cool content in and of itself, watching somebody brand new work on it and kind of fumble around so you can get a feel for how easily can somebody kind of figure this stuff out. So anyway, enough rambling. So thank you so much for joining me for the studio rebuild and configuration. I really do appreciate it. Leave comments below. Let me know if you have any questions about something specific and I will try to answer it. And until the next video, I've been Dave with Mixing Music Analog and mixingmusicanalog.com. I may do a full separate video studio tour once I get everything dialed in and all the new stuff in here. I'll probably do a separate video on that. But this is it for the rebuild series. Thanks guys, I appreciate you watching.